So today on Retro Cores Made in China, we're going to be taking a look at the recent Pandora PSA 9D portable arcade system. So as you can see, taking a look at the top of the machine, we've got the beautiful Mai Shirani on there, and we've got a 2-player set of buttons. Now the joysticks themselves are fully micro switched and they feel fairly responsive. The main player buttons are also micro switched and feel good. I have to say that these Chinese buttons have certainly come a long way. Unfortunately, this particular unit looks like it has a big scratch up the center, but not to worry because that is actually on the protective coating which can be taken off. So no problem. Around the back of the machine we've got the usual selection of buttons. We have the power switch, the DC input, the HDMI out, VGA out, audio out, volume for the audio and the HDMI unfortunately, settings switch, and 2 USB ports, which can be used to be connecting this up to a PC or a PlayStation 3, and apparently an Xbox 360 as well according to the manual. Also, you can plug PlayStation 3 controllers into that port and use them on this device. On the bottom of the machine you can see that we've got some lovely feet to keep it stable while it's on the table and stop it from slipping. They work pretty well, and there's also the grill for the internal speaker, which is pretty damn loud. Taking a look inside of the machine, you can see that the cables are tidied away quite nicely. All kept tidy with cable ties. There's the internal speaker and an LED strip. Now that LED strip actually lights up the acrylic which the controls are based upon, but if you don't want them lighting up during dark rooming gameplay sessions, then yeah, simply unplug it like this. And here we are taking a close-up at the board. Now the old Pandora box machines didn't have a fan on the main CPU or GPU, but these ones do since they feature a lot more horsepower than the older models. Not enough horsepower, but at least they have more horsepower. Under this QC2 sticker here is the micro SD card, and that's where all the game ROMs are stored. Now you can take that out, maybe you can add more game ROMs to it, but yeah, I'm not going to try on this particular machine in case I break it trying to get that micro SD card out. So along with the main unit you get a collection of accessories. So we've got the power brick over here. We've got a USB cable to connect it to the PC. We've got an HDMI cable, and we also got the VGA cable. Now when you first switch on this machine, it boots into 720p as you can see here from the main boot logo. Now this is fine and all, it looks really good on this 4K television as you can clearly see. But the thing is, do you really want to be playing your classic arcade games stretched to widescreen? I don't think you do. But anyway, let's take a look and see what the default setting looks like. Okay, straight away you can see it's got that horrible blurry filter on it, which they call the enhanced mode. But it looks awful, just look how blurry that is. Yeah. So what do we do to fix that? Well, we press the settings button on the back of the machine and go into the settings menu. Okay, so here we are with the filter switched off, and as you can see it looks better. It's still not super sharp mind you, it's still a little bit blurry, but maybe that's because it's a 720p signal being upscaled to a 4K screen. But saying that, my other machines that output 720p don't look this blurry. But anyway, it's looking better. But we still have the problem that the game is in 16:9 and it shouldn't be, it should be in 4:3. So we can also fix that. Now by holding down the settings button when you switch on the power on the back of the machine will allow the machine to change resolution. So the default is 720p, but we don't want 16:9 for our classic games. So the next resolution will be 1024x768p, and that displays perfectly well on this 4K panel. And as you can see, the actual panel's own information says that it's running at 1024x768. So that's 720p, I guess you want to say, for 4:3 images. Now let's take a look and see what Turtles looks like. Oh yes, that is much, much better.
Hey, Klein, bring that statue back, you bloated beanbag!
Okay, let's take a look at the rest of the options this machine offers us. So first of all, we have the I/O test, which just checks all the buttons to make sure they're working fine. And as you can see, they certainly are. They're kind of set out as a Neo Geo arrangement. So if you want to play your Capcom 6-button shooters, or Capcom 6-button fighters I should say, you go to the custom buttons menu. And in here, we can change them to Capcom style buttons. So A, B, C at the top, D, E, F at the bottom. You can also set up your PlayStation buttons in this menu as well, just in case you want to use a PlayStation controller on this device. The config menu lets you change various aspects about the machine, such as if you put credits in to play, how you exit the games, is there a pause menu, how many minutes before the machine automatically resets, various different options as well, including that horrible quality optimization option, which you gotta switch off. The game settings menu allows you to adjust the parameters for every single game on the machine, which is pretty handy, and it will save them into memory. The internal speaker you should switch off if you're using this on a TV, because you need to turn up the volume on the back of the device in order to get volume out of the TV. Kinda weird, but if you got the internal speaker switched on and the TV switched on, it's gonna sound awful, so switch that internal speaker off. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the arcade games running on this. First of all, we'll take a look at some Neo Geo stuff.
Round 3. Ready, go!
So as you can see, the Neo Geo games seem to have a bit of screen tearing in them. What about Capcom games? Let's take a look at some Capcom CPS2 titles and see if they have the same issue. Yes, it would seem the Capcom CPS2 games also have this issue. In fact, it would seem that all games have this issue, no matter what type of arcade board they run on. Let's take a look at a Capcom CPS3 game. Yes, so as you can see, it runs full speed and it sounds good, but it does have the screen tearing issue. Let's take a look at a couple of arcade games that are not running on Capcom or SNK hardware.
You won't get away with this.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's go! Fight!
So as you can see, a lot of those games work perfectly fine. Now this machine also includes Mega Drive and Super Nintendo Super Famicom games. So let's take a look at the Mega Drive stuff first. We'll look at two games. Let's take a look at Contra 3, or Contra Wars, whatever it's called, and Streets of Rage 2. Just wait till you hear the sound of Streets of Rage 2. I think you're going to be surprised. Isn't that Streets of Rage 2 completely messed up? Now you may have noticed that very quickly before the game started, it had a different splash screen. Here's that splash screen in a freeze screen. Do you know what that is? Yep, Mega Play, the arcade version of a Sega Mega Drive. So they're not standard Mega Drive ROMs, they're actually ROMs from the Mega Play system. But I wonder if the Mega Play actually did sound like that on Streets of Rage 2. So let's take a look at two Super Nintendo games running on this. Let's start off with Final Fight 3. Yep, Final Fight 3 seems to work just fine, apart from the screen tearing, but everything has screen tearing on this device. Okay, one game that Super Nintendo emulators seem to have trouble with is Ghost Chaser. Let's take a look at that and see if that runs okay. Nope, the intro has crashed. No surprise there. Let's see if the in-game graphics are working. Okay, that seems to be running, but is a little bit slow. So yeah, maybe Super Nintendo emulation is not worth bothering with on this device. But this device also comes with some PlayStation games built in. Let's take a look at those.
Round one. Fight. Round two. Fight.
So yeah, as you can see, PlayStation can be a bit hit and miss. Tekken 3 seemed to run not so well, whereas Street Fighter EX seemed to run just fine. So there we have it, one of the most recent additions of the Pandora's box. Although it does have the same panel as an old one I reviewed a while back. Do I think it's worth getting? Well, if you forget about playing the Super Nintendo games on it, then yeah, it's a decent little device for arcade games. Maybe if you run it through VGA, it will not suffer from those screen tearing issues. I don't know. As a joystick itself, it's fairly good. I can pull off all the moves and so on. And we do get a nice manual with it now that does explain how to connect it up to a PC and a PlayStation 3. Although they do show a PlayStation 4 in the manual. Link in the video description down below if you're interested.